Good day, everyone, and welcome. I'm Robin. I'm joined by my co-host Nitin. Between us, we have spent enough time inside AI programs and in this industry to know what the slides typically leave out, which is exactly what we want to get into today. AI in retail and CPG has moved past the should we do it conversation. Everybody here has got a pilot, right? The real question is what is actually scaling, what's delivering returns, and what's slowly being unwound. Now, we've got four practitioners here on the stage who are in the middle of the journey right now. Nitin and I are going to take you through probably in the next 20 minutes that journey, and we're going to keep it honest. So before we dive in, just want to mention this. This isn't a panel where we're going to agree with everything and all go home feeling good about AI. We want the real version, right? What has worked, what hasn't worked, and what are the lessons that haven't made it to the LinkedIn posts. So please hold us to that. With that said, I'll probably start with the first question, and I'll ask this question to Nithya. Nithya, AI is reshaping the entire retail and the CPG value chain, if you really look at it from that value chain perspective, right? From demand sensing to last mile. Where in that chain do you see the highest impact use cases right now? And where do you think it's mostly noise?
Thank you, Robin, for the context and welcome everyone to the conversation. Yeah, AI has been kind of,
we lost. Go ahead, Nithya.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, a couple of areas that I could touch upon. One is the demand management part, and the other one is in terms of retail only channel. So for example, if I pick demand management, right? So there were times when we used to rely on time series or machine learning based demand forecasting, and that used to kind of look at more of historical data and help us doing some sort of guesstimation based stock stock estimations. But I think what it was lacking is more of real-time demand sensing. So what AI has brought, as from a game changer standpoint, is it has really kind of made our supply chain more receptive to changes in the demand signals. It has helped us sort of diversify our supply chain based on strategic sourcing and procurement. It has given us the kind of I would say the leverage to flex when things really don't go well. In the supply chain scenarios, the supply chains can get constrained because of geopolitical situations, or for example, Black Friday. Oh, so that has been one area. Another area is in retail omnichannel, where AI-driven personalization has really helped us in recommending the right set of products based on who is the shopper on our .com and what has been their shopping. It has really helped us curate promos and product bundling, and in a way help us shape the shopping behavior. And this has had a significant upside push on say net sold volume and revenue. So these are a couple of examples that I could generally quote.
Wonderful. Thanks, Nithya. Love the value chain perspective here. And it's great to see how value is very specific in some examples to specific parts in the value chain. Over to you, Nitin, for the next question.
Thank you, Robin. I think everyone has heard about Chat GPT and LLMs, right? So ever since Chat GPT came in and GenAI became a mainstream in last few years, every company has been trying to rethink that how the work gets done. So maybe Kaushik, to you, from your experience, if you look at any one of the use case very closely in the retail domain, how was it done earlier versus how it is being done now with the generative AI coming into the play? I really want to understand from your end, like what has really changed, or I would say, is it just a hype, or is it really making some good value drops for our business?
Thanks, Nitin. It's interesting how we always talk about, okay, is it hype or is it reality? And one of the favorite processes where I have seen AI being used to an extent in a larger way is probably finance. So let me take you into finance specifically. As we go into some of the month-end closures, the variance commentary explaining why actuals deviated from budget. Like there is a traditional way of looking at it, and now how AI has shaped it. In the old way, at most, let's say large enterprises, we had usually a 2 to 3 to 5 day exercise, getting in the recon done, getting in kind of, mapping all of it, running the macros, and in the old traditional way. Finance business partners would pull data from the ERP, Excel bridges, chase owners, data is not complete. And you had to go through all the deal. And then once you had the numbers, we had to chase again for the story behind the numbers. Hey, I'm seeing a deviation. Why is this happening? And then consolidate the narratives across the business units. Often it usually amounted to a 15 to 20 people touching the same group of teams and getting the same information, massaging the data back and forth. Let's say for a $10 billion company, it could easily burn about 2,000 man hours every single month just explaining what had already happened. Backward looking, expensive, slow. With Gen AI, as we see it in the picture today, what we see is companies like possibly Unilever, Heineken, and large BFSI firms. The model ingests actuals versus budget. It identifies top variances. It pulls context from prior commentary and business notes and drafts the management packs overnight. So all of the heavy lifting is done by AI. The review cycles that used to take days now take just hours. So what actually changed? The heavy lifting, the grunt work, the first draft narrative writing, largely gone. That's real, right? What did not change, and this is the part that surprises today most of the CFO offices, is the judgment call, right? The model can say, marketing spend was 12% over due to this cluster campaign, this campaign getting launched in this cluster or whatever. We just released a new campaign. What it cannot say is, here is why leadership should or should not be worried. And I think it's a very subtle distance. So what? The forward-looking read, the business partnering conversation, it still requires a human. In fact, most of the companies, I feel, have found their finance VPs were more exposed after deployment and not less, because how the narrative changed without hiding behind the process. So some of these things get more exposed. While the heavy lifting is done by Gen AI, the Gen AI compressed the factory, did not replace the thinking. The work did not disappear, it just moves upstream.
Great. I think what you're talking about is a real value add, and I can also see a similar kind of stuff in my organization. Very quick on one of the use cases, I can say the social listening, which or the sentimental analysis, which we used to do in the past. You need to run your traditional AI ML models, and today with the Gen AI, I think it's very quick. And think about when you have your agents deployed, where you can actually access the public domain data, what's happening in a real time. So I certainly agree that there are certain use cases which is where we are seeing a great value, and there are certain places where people try to retrofit Gen AI. I think that's something we will talk some other time. But overall, I see that this is a great value add which is giving to the business. With that, I will hand it over back to you, Robin, for your next question.
Thanks, Nitin. I just want to kind of focus ourselves on one of the favorite pain points of practitioners, that's data. We are all in retail and CPG, and we sit on a lot of data, be it sell in, sell out, be it shelf, shopper, trade, whatnot. But a lot of it, as we know, is fragmented, delayed at times, logged behind. Some of them are logged behind specific walls. So how is AI changing what is actually usable, and where is this data problem really winning? Would love to get your perspectives on that, Nithya.
Yeah, thanks, Robin. So, see, data quality has always been a table stake, right? Ignoring that has been a problem for many of the corporates. And data can be transactional data or streaming data, as we know, that gets generated in CPG and retail. AI in general has really helped us in ensuring data discovery, data lineage, cataloging, quality, and data governance. Having said that, right, there has been significant amount of, I would say, impact and improvement in the quality and usability of data when it comes to transactional data, because these are pretty much reasonable volume and at a probably a comfortable frequency they get generated. But when it comes to data which is kind of high volume and high velocity, we still had some gaps of late, right? For instance, if you talk about the customer clickstream data, when a person goes on to your website and starts shopping and then clicks on various options on the screen, you need all of that data as and how it gets generated, which could be in significant volumes and great frequency, because on basis of that you run many of your underlying data models or AI models to predict what would be the right set of products that could be recommended to the person, what should be the right level of promos that need to be surfaced to this person, what sort of product bundling we can do in order to nudge the person to shop more. So all of these decisions, and also when it comes to payment security, at the checkout, there also we need a lot of this clickstream data. So given the complexity of this data in terms of volume, variety, and velocity, AI systems had been a bit challenged. So what we have seen is we have really been able to deploy some of these AI watchers or AI, I would say, assistants in helping us identify anomalies like incorrect data page load events or incorrect attribute data which is coming in. Sometimes the clickstream data by sheer volume and frequency, some of the events they can get missed, and there could be duplicacies also. So because of this, the decision which gets made based on this can go wrong, and then and there's a lot at stake if things go wrong here. Not only the revenue and upside on revenue, it's also about the reputation of the brand. So we have seen AI really help us here in this regard.
Wonderful. Thanks, Nithya. Just want to add on to that by making 2 points around, especially Gen AI. Probably two observations. The first one is around using Gen AI to query data. Given the volume of data, I've seen that being used to reasonably good amount of success in terms of kind of getting insights, not insights, maybe querying data with natural language. The second thing that where I find this to be useful, that's specifically Gen AI, is in terms of doing harmonizations, given how fragmented CPG and retail data sets are. In terms of kind of doing that massaging and harmonization, that's again another place where I've found Gen AI especially to be a bit useful. But again, data is a topic where I've never met a practitioner who said they've had enough of it in the right shape or at the right time. With that said, thanks, Nithya. Over to you, Nitin.
Okay, so I think I have a similar question to Nithya, what you've asked Robin, right? So in the retail, as we all know, that data is scattered, excuse me, all across different applications, right? We have your ERP systems, your e-commerce, your CRM, and connecting all the data, that context has not been very, very easy, right? And now with the MCP and newer AI connectivity approaches coming in, do you think retailers are finally getting closer to a truly connected enterprise where AI can seamlessly access and act on the business context? Or we are still dealing with the same data silo problems, just in a more modern looking way?
Nitin, that's a great question. See, data silos have been a hard nut to crack, given the legacy architecture and too many patchworks that have gone into it, in the past. Well, the first step of solving this problem is always been process optimization and optimization of the architecture of our enterprise systems, right? That is a good starting point. And even if you talk about process optimization, AI has played significant role in recommending processes, how the processes should be in a way, helping us re-engineer the processes. So this will be quite stark when we move ahead in future with agentic autonomous enterprises, where the entire end-to-end process and the value chain could be automated with agentic workflows. Subsequently, right, when you talk about affiliated capabilities like and frameworks like MCP, agentic frameworks, and event-driven architecture, they have ensured real-time analytics that is deeply embedded in the context. And it also helps in enabling cross-functional decision making. MCP along with, say, agentic framework can help us identify the context and query the data which is required to solve for the context to the right data source, and all of that in real time, right? So these technologies and the frameworks have been helping us kind of I would say live with the data silos, not that we'll ever be able to do away with them.
Yeah, and then my experience, Nithya, like we are exploring a lot on the MCP side of it, right? Today, when I talk to different SaaS providers, everyone is coming up with their own MCP servers, and think about it like someone from an executive, they want to see what's happening in your CRM system, which could be your Salesforce, and how you want to connect it back with your CDP, where your customer is there, right? And then you want to go back to your Snowflake or Databricks, where your actual data is lying. If you have to marry everything, it takes ages, right? Like to get all that thing, because you need to build that integration layer. We still need to do that, but think about it like a quick unlock can happen, that if you have your host, it could be your Claude or Chat GPT, anything, and it can connect to your any of these, all these different MCP servers, bring all the data, assimilate it, and give it back to the business. I think that's where the value drop we will be seeing very soon, and that's the kind of framework a lot of companies will start adopting. And I think that's the reason you are seeing that a lot of these SaaS companies are coming up with their MCP server. They don't want to be left behind. So I think that's the new way of basically accessing the data, breaking some of the silos. With that, I will hand it over back to you, Robin.
Thanks, Nitin. This is going to be a sharp one. Let's close in on ROI, right? Not potential, but actual returns. Kaushik, what does a credible ROI story for AI and retail look like in, let's say, 2026?
See, I'll very quickly unpack this in two ways. One, what you usually hear as AI stories in retail CPG, and very quickly, what does a credible story look like? A typical pitch goes like, we deployed an AI demand forecasting tool and improved forecast accuracy by 30%. Sounds impressive, but a 30% improvement from what baseline? Right? Measured how? Over what time window? Did the business actually reduce inventory, or did planners override the model 60% of the time anyways? Most ROI stories collapse the moment you ask those questions. A credible ROI story has three components: a very clean baseline, a measured intervention, and an honest delta. I think these three are it's the triad of these three things. First, baseline. And I think, here is what it looks like in practice. Take demand forecasting as an example, as Nithya was talking earlier. Arguably the most mature AI use case in CPG today, a mid-sized FMCG company, say about 3 to 5 billion in revenue, typically runs forecast accuracy measured as mean average sort of a thing, right? Somewhere between 35 to 45% at the SKU allocation level. Now that's your baseline. Deploying a well-tuned ML forecasting model, companies like Henkel and Danone have reported bringing the overall percentage down to 20 to 25% range. That's a 15-point improvement at scale, translating to a real inventory reduction. So this is what kind of makes the CFO excited. So some of the usual kind of veins the organization skip, and where credibility breaks down, is most companies do not have a clean documented pre-AI baseline. So that's first. Almost nobody runs a geographic or category holdout. So a control group is always missing. And the third is attribution in retail, where personalization is the holy grail. AI might claim a 12% uplift in basket size, but who gets the credit? The algorithm, the promotion running the same week, the store reset that happened the same quarter. So I think this is where things get a bit lumped up. So at the end, a credible ROI story in today's world isn't the biggest number in the room. I think we have to have the real baseline, a good control group, and a good attribution process to get to that holy grail.
Wonderful. Thanks, Kaushik. Love the way you kind of unpack the ROI story for us. Wonderful. Over to you, Nitin.
So I think I would say that we have heard a lot of good use cases and also about how the ROI can be measured and the value of the Gen AI. I would say that thanks to all our panelists over here, and I would say this is a wrap from our side, from me and Robin. Thank you all for being part of this, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.